Tuesday, friends. We're back with part 3 of our mini masterclass series that is focused on detox this month. Today's topic is looking at things we can avoid. We all have a load. We all have an exposure load in our body through our unique circumstances, situations, exposures we've had knowingly or unknowingly. So I want to focus on today is things that are in our regular environment or personal care products or foods that a lot of the time we do have choice over whether we're exposing ourselves to them or not. If we go back to episode number 1, and I went through a lot of the symptoms that if you have a bunch of those, to me that's your body screaming that is overloaded, right? Inflammation, headaches, puffiness, swelling, skin breakouts, discolored eyes, lack of energy. Those are all signs that your body is screaming for help. And so, one way to help our body along in getting rid of what's already there is just to lighten the load, right? If our body has a capacity to, say, deal with clean out 5 bags of garbage, let's say our body has the capacity to each day clean out 5 bags of garbage. But at the same time, we're putting in or exposing the body to 6 bags of garbage, we will never get caught up. So the least we could do is balance things out. And then our body's like, okay, at least like we're staying the same where we're at, but you're here because you know there's more. So what do we do to limit the bags of garbage we are exposing to? Those are the topics I'm going to dive into today. So let's start off with some skincare products. So there's a group called the Environmental Working Group. They have a website, EWG. You can just Google that. It'll probably take it right to it. They also have apps that are greatly available. So I'm going to focus first on some skincare products. So parabens in skincare products, they're often found in cosmetics and lotions. We know they disrupt hormones, and that is not what we want. Hormone disruption leads to issues with our immune system and potentially leads to cancer, right? So just because it disrupts hormones, I don't want to, like, again, this is not for scare tactics, like, oh my God, it's going to cause cancer. But very real, it's very hard for our body to deal with. And a lot of these things like the parabens and the phthalates, they are obesogens, meaning they promote your body storing fat, which is not what we want. That is not good. That's like another way it's causing an issue with our health, not even cancer, but it's causing our body to store more fat, which is going to contribute to metabolic syndrome, diabetes, high blood pressure, the inability to get rid of the extra adipose. Extra adipose usually leads to higher estrogen levels. I had someone in the group asking about higher estrogen levels and estrogen toxicity. So we have to address what's the level of adipose tissue in the body. So the Environmental Working Group has an app, they have a website, and the one is called Skin Deep. And so it rates very commonly widely available skincare products, shampoos, soaps, fragrances, cleaning products. They have it broken down to all different categories. So I would encourage having a look at that, having a look and scanning the things, your personal care products that you use on a regular basis, see where it falls on that list. And then the next time you're due to replace that item, whether it's a soap or shampoo or a lotion, if that ranked pretty high on the list, which in their scoring system, higher is not optimal, they want a lower score, maybe you could find something that's a lower score. And please, for the love of all that's holy, don't buy People Bath and Body Works. Like, if you love someone in your life, do not buy them Bath and Body Works products. I did a quick scan on it this morning just to see where it falls, right? And yeah, a lot of their products rate from like 7 all the way up to 10, which 10 is the highest score of, like, yeah, you really don't want to do that. So at the season where we're looking for things that are stocking stuffers, we're looking for lotion because our hands are dry because the heat is on. Let's double check what we're using against that reference tool. Could I make a better choice? Is there something else that's maybe a little bit safer available to me? So there's lots of products that they call EWG certified. So if you see that on the label, you're like, okay, I know they've I know they've checked out with this group, I can usually that product's going to be pretty safe for me. And if it's not, like check on it. So I was like, I have a huge thing with Bath and Body Works. It's just like if you're sensitive to chemicals, like if you maybe you aren't, but if you know anyone who's like sensitive to chemicals, they're like, oh yeah, I can't go in that store. Like I can't even like walk by it. That's how toxic Bath and Body Works is. Like just the overwhelming and a lot in Bath and Body Works specifically, it's the fragrances and the phthalates in the fragrances. So phthalates are another class of chemicals that are often hidden in fragrances. They're hormone disruptors. They're found in cosmetics, plastic toys, plastic products, and the interesting thing is that there's no regulation on phthalates in the United States. So Canada, the research article I found listed a couple countries that do have regulations on phthalates, but there is no regulation in the United States. And our thyroid is so sensitive, and so especially if we're putting perfume on, ladies usually put perfume on the neck, right? Because we're told to put it on the pulse points. Don't put toxic perfume on your neck. If you're putting perfume on, that's where it's like best to like put it on on your clothes. And that's why some people will opt for something a little more natural, maybe an essential oil. Take a look at what you're using because that day-to-day exposure, right? If you're someone who uses perfume, if you've been using the same perfume for 40 years, that's exposure every day, every day, every day, right? So just have a look. And it's not like it can be like, it has to be like a hard no or a never, but we can gauge it against, right? Like even on the Skin Deep app for the environmental working group, things that are scored higher, like 8, 9, 10, it's like minimal exposure, right? So maybe you have your favorite fragrance and it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to be using this every day, but maybe use it for a special occasion, right? Or maybe you look for an opportunity for something else. Like I haven't worn perfume like in over a decade, like over a decade. If I do anything, I'll throw a little essential oil on. Other things that we want to be mindful of. So something like PCBs, like these are all known endocrine disruptors, a few that I'm going to talk about here. Something like PCBs, they were banned in 1979. So we might not consider that our everyday exposure right now because it's not actively being used. But the problem with something with PCBs and DDT is that they're persistent pollutants. So they take a really, really long time to break down. And a lot of us in this group were born before 1979. I was born in 1979. So there's so many of us in this group that even though it's not something we're necessarily actively exposed to, maybe we did have a history of exposure before. What was our exposure level pre 1979? And then what was in the environment didn't just magically go away in 1979. It took about 30 years for the levels of concentration to go down. DDT is another one. At Point Pelee National Park, there's one area of park that there's still a sign up. This area contaminated with DDT, do not enter. Again, DDT hasn't been used since the 70s, but it still persists. What's our exposure? What's our unique exposure? And something that's always in the back of my mind was I grew up in a very rural area right beside my great grandpa's apple orchard. Blessed upbringing, like so grateful for that. But he'd spray the apples and we'd have to stay in the house, right? He'd be like, let mom know, okay, I'm spraying today. And we just knew if the sprayer's out, you have to stay in the house that day. But it was like literally like our house was here and like what he's spraying is like right over there, right? And so sure, we're not there while it's like actively in the air, but then we're outside a couple hours later, right? So like that's unique exposure that I have in my history. You might not have. You might have more. There was a time in high school when we were working in the cornfields, like we were literally poisoned. We went into a field the first thing in the morning. It had been sprayed the night before, and we went in first thing, so it was still all dewy. So all of that poison just got right into our skin and got sick. We all went to the hospital. They gave me a shot. I felt better. so, so those are unique things that we have in our background where it's just like, man, what's the buildup? Again, like some of this is like, it's not your fault. It's just the exposure. So we're going into this with an awareness. Heavy metals like mercury, lead, cadmium. Do we have a buildup? Do we have mercury amalgams? Right? Do we have mercury fillings? Do we consume a lot of fish? that might potentially be high in mercury? Did we have an unusual amount of lead exposure, right? Usually, like, again, we're not using lead paint anymore, but there's certain, people who work in different metalworks might have higher levels of exposure to some of these things than someone else, like people in the who are welders. Atrazine is a herbicide, and it contaminates groundwater, and it's an endocrine disruptor. It's a hormone disruptor. Again, you might not think you have exposure to something like that, but it contaminates groundwater. And so it might be the source of atrazine in water might be hundreds of kilometers or miles away, but it still might be influencing you. BPA, we've talked about that, plastic containers. So having a look at, can I avoid the use of plastic containers as much as possible, but definitely looking for ones that are BPA free. BPA, a known hormone disruptor. If you're still cycling, if you use tampons, get organic tampons. Your vaginal canal actually absorbs a lot. Like there's medications, like we can use creams and medications in that area because the tissue is very soft and supple and moist, and so it absorbs a lot. So if you're using tampons, get organic tampons. I would say the same with pads as well. Look at what you're using for laundry detergent. Are they full with artificial fragrances? And just because something is fragrance free, again, just at first glance, going fragrance free is often a good option. But if you scan it in the environmental working group app, some of the ones I was looking at were scent free, but they were like had the poorest rating, right? So it can still be scent free, but it can still have other things in it. But going scent free is a good option as well. Your laundry doesn't need to smell. Like, I can't even walk down the aisle at the grocery store with that stuff. It's like crazy to me. It's crazy offensive. And I'll talk about some things that you can include of like how would we want to mix that up if we're used to having like a scent, like if we're used to like, all right, my clothes smell like this, my towels smell like this. What are the options we can use? Looking at antibacterial soaps, right? Again, what's around that we're using right now, right? And again, some things like if you're at a public washroom, you can't really control what's in their soap dispenser. Maybe at work you can't control what's in the soap dispenser, but what's in your home, what's in your environment, and taking stock of the overall exposure. So antibacterial soaps, specifically with triclosan, they disrupt the microbiome on our skin, which is connected to the rest of our microbiome in our sinuses, in our mouth, and in our digestive tract. So they're hormone disruptors and affecting our microbiome by killing off certain bacteria. We can be clean without needing the extra antibacterial soaps most of the time, right? Again, certain workplaces or environments require different levels of sanitation. But in our homes, as long as we're washing well, we don't need the antibacterial soap. Chemical air fresheners is another one of my pet peeves, is chemical air fresheners. Things like again, I want to like get in trouble for calling like too many brands out, right? But like the melty fragrance wax things, air fresheners, like they're terrible for you. Like they are absolutely terrible. When I know someone has overload of like headaches and migraines, it's like we need to reduce your exposure to those chemical air fresheners. Again, there's never a zero avoidance anymore, because if you go into any public space, if you go into a hotel, if you go into a public washroom, they all have little devices up in the corner that are spraying chemicals out. Like go in, if you're in Ontario, go in, if you're driving on the 401, stop at one of the on routes and look, there's like one of the devices and it sprays and it's like, oh man, like, and literally sprays right over you as you're walking by. Again, so sometimes it's unintentional exposure, but it's there, and I didn't need that exposure. I didn't ask for it. I didn't need it, but it's there. So look for things in your environment. Again, I'll talk about what do you do instead, Natalie? There's lots of other fun things you can do instead. If you're dry cleaning your clothes, so there's some of the chemicals they use, like the perchloroethylenes. And again, there's different dry cleaning practices. But if you do dry clean your clothes, leave it hanging outside if you can for a little bit. Like, so maybe you have a garage, or you can just hang it outside for a bit. Keep it in a room that's like not in the house for a couple of days for it to off gas, right? It's like if you get a new piece of furniture in the house, if you get dry cleaning, you can smell it, it's off gassing. So you don't want that like in your area, right? You don't want that to bring a couple of dry clean items and put it in your closet, that it's filling up your bedroom and then you're sleeping there and you're breathing it in for 8 hours every day. So just be mindful of that. Aluminum antiperspirants. Aluminum is one thing you would want to look to avoid. The idea with aluminum is that it stops you from sweating, but it clogs your pores. We've talked a lot about sweat, the benefit of sweating for detoxing. So when we clog our pores, again, might be time and place that you want to put some deodorant on, like because you're going out to a thing. But as we do it over time, our pores get clogged and they're literally not able to sweat. And there's such a backlog. And this is where we have so much lymphatic nodules and lymphatic veins and vessels. And aluminum is toxic to that. And then a lot of that vessels goes right up to the brain. And we know the link between aluminum, mental decline, cognitive decline, dementia. It's time to look for aluminum-free deodorants. In terms of our food that we're eating, Environmental Working Group also publishes a list every year. That's the Dirty Dozen Clean 15. And what that is they make a list of Dirty Dozen, so the 12 foods that are generally highest sprayed in pesticides, like conventionally grown. Like, so they're not talking maybe your local farmer's market or, your grandma's backyard garden, but the things if you go to the grocery store and get, they are typically the highest amount of pesticides. Eating organic's expensive and not everything's always readily available. And if we want to be conscious and mindful of our budget, it's like, where can we make the best investments in what we're choosing? So I'll read you the list of things that are on the Dirty Dozen. So these are the 12 produce items highest in pesticides. Number 1, strawberries. Strawberries. How much strawberries do we eat? Lots. I do anyway. Spinach, kale, peaches, pears, nectarines, apples, grapes, bell peppers, cherries, blueberries, green beans. So according to the Environmental Working Group, is when presented with the option, those would be the ones you want to buy organic, right? They have the Clean 15 list, which is almost the opposite, which is like the lowest pesticide residue on those. So those ones, like, hey, save your pennies, go buy all of those conventional. And usually there's like bananas and onions and some things like that on it. Or like something like strawberries are expensive, right? So a lot of times buying frozen organic is actually cheaper than buying fresh, right? So I can buy a big bag of frozen organic wild blueberries way cheaper than I could buy the same volume fresh blueberries. So maybe just looking at how we're the opportunity of it, right? If I'm using spinach for my smoothies, I could buy the big tub of organic spinach, which usually runs about $6 now, or I could buy frozen, right? So there's options, right? So options to start looking for that, or making sure you are washing those produce items really well, right? There's a lot of great, even just home remedies of how to wash produce, right? Because again, things like strawberries and blueberries, they aren't cheap, especially in the winter, going into the winter. So how can I mind my budget, buy the produce, but make sure I've washed it well, done what I can to limit my exposure. So it's not like anything on that list is like, oh my goodness, it's like the worst thing ever if you don't eat an organic strawberry. If you're buying the conventional grown strawberries, that's what we buy a lot, but it's like, are we washing it? Like, can we at least do a little bit to like remove some of the pesticide use for it? I would also include in the things to avoid is things that you're sensitive to. Because a lot of times there's foods we know that we're sensitive to that we are still eating, even if it's just like a sometimes basis. Top ones are dairy, peanuts, gluten, wine, and sugar. Like if you know you're sensitive to those foods and we're talking about detox and you want to give your body the best chance to clear things out and feel amazing, don't eat those foods, right? At least for 4 to 6 weeks. Give your body a break from those for 4 to 6 weeks. Be aware of processed foods with a lot of additives, things with artificial food dyes. They're linked to hyperactivity. So a lot of the we talk about in terms of executive function. So executive function is our brain. Like, how does our brain work? Are we able to focus? Do we have lack of focus? And luckily there is a huge movement now of acknowledging the neurodivergence in women over 40, because they realize that how women or girls presented with neurodivergent was different than boys. So looking back, it's like, oh man, there's this whole cohort of women that were not identified as neurodivergent. I think, like, I'm happy that's happening now, but I think the better segue is what's interfering with our brain capacity, like what's interfering with our ability to focus, what's interfering with migraines or headaches or hyperactivity. As there's more of a cohort of women coming into this phase, is because we're perimenopause and menopausal, where it's like, wow, there's all these shifts. We have all the hormonal shifts happening at the same time, and then we aren't feeding ourselves well, and we have unstable blood sugar, and we have a lot of inflammation. And then we're like, oh, you know what? We haven't done women a service and properly assessed them for their whole life. So now we're just going to give them like ADD meds. And some women are taking them and they're like getting their life back, right? Like some, again, legit have not, we're gone their life adapting, figuring out the best way, but they might be getting help through their doctor. They might be getting help through prescription medication. But a lot of times, no one else is coming and saying, hey, what else do we need to do to help your brain work better? And synthetic food dyes are like, if you have a kid with ADD or if a kid on the spectrum, do not give them red food dye. Like, do not give them red food dye. Not, no bueno. Well, the same holds still for us. Like, our brains are not going to work well. Even if we were still able to function, our brains are not capable of processing that long term. All right, take a look at the cookware in your kitchen. Are we using glass? Are we using stainless steel? Do we have nonstick cookware with Teflons? The PFOAs, the polyfluoride organic alamines, should have looked that up before. The PFOAs are prevalent in your conventional Teflon nonstick coating, and every time you heat it up, they release it into the air. There's stories, and I have someone who had a bird. Their story was like birds dropping dead because people got new nonstick cookware sets, and birds are more sensitive to that type of chemical, right? So, well, the bird, it was quite evident something that the bird was not well. It's not great for us as well. So, using stainless steel, there's a lot of ceramic, there's a lot of other safer, more stable coatings now, so you can have a non-stick. I've used Cuisinart ones for years and years, and they last pretty good. Cast iron, of course, the good old standard cast iron as well. Let me look at my list. Harsh cleaning chemicals, same thing. Run your cleaning chemicals through the environmental worker group. Again, time and place, right? There are certain things where you're just like, yeah, you know what? This needs a deep clean. There's Lena. This needs a deep clean. We need this big gun. Is the area well ventilated? Do you have proper PPE, protective equipment? Do you have gloves? Do you have an eye mat, like eye shield, so nothing gets in your eye? How much are we using it? How often are we using it? This is where like I really became mindful about this, is when I had my kids, and I'm just like, well, if I'm like cleaning the floor, because at the house I was living in then, like, it was all tile floor. So like, what am I cleaning my floor with? Because my toddler's climbing around. My toddler's like, all their toys are on the ground and like putting everything up my mouth. Like, what am I cleaning the bathtub with? Because I'm cleaning the bathtub and then I'm filling it with water and then bathing my child in the bathtub. So having a look at the exposures, what are the natural things we can do? Again, sometimes we're going to use the heavy hitters at certain times are appropriate, but just, is it wiped down? Is there minimal exposure after? Are you putting food on something that you just use a heavy duty cleaner on afterwards? Okay, so again, it's not all doom and gloom. I want to look at some things that we can include. The idea with the avoid list is like, all right, what's there? What's the reality of our situation? What am I exposed to in my environment? So take that list after you've watched this and just look around your home and your environment. Be mindful over the next couple of days the things you grab, right? Oh, do you grab like an air freshener for the bathroom? What are you using to clean the stove? I even see just bought garbage bags on the weekend. Like scented garbage bags. Like we don't need scented garbage bags. Like anything with an artificial scent, like a scented garbage bag, like that's just not good for you. Like just it is not good for you. So just be mindful. Have a look around of what am I using. You don't need to do an overhaul, but the next time you buy something, right? Shampoo's out. Oh, the cleaner's done. Oh, my detergent is out. What am I going to replace it with? And especially this time of year moving into Christmas, if you're buying things for other people, stocking stuffing stockings. Not sure why that was hard to say. Stuffing stockings, what are you putting in there? Right? I specifically, my mom has her usuals that she gets like me and the kids. And I specifically took a screenshot of the one. I'm like, hey, this is the body wash I buy the boys, right? So hoping that she'll buy this one instead of the one that she had been buying, right? So there's ways we can present the other options to and let other people know as well. Like, hey, this is the one I would love. Okay, so what do we do? What are some things we can include? I'm just going to run through these quickly. We can include, we've already talked about water and drinking clean filtered water. If you're not sure about your water source, you can add a little bit of lemon juice to your water once a day. Right, a table like the juice of half a lemon. I buy organic lemon juice in a bottle because I find that it's more cost effective than lemons. And sometimes you buy a lemon and like you buy a bag of lemons and they rot in like 2 days. So I do a tablespoon of lemon juice in about 500 mils of water. Herbal teas, great way to hydrate and bring in some nutrition. Having things like ginger or dandelion or turmeric or milk thistle, all great ways you can have something yummy. It's beneficial for your body. We've talked about dry brushing. Natural cleaning products. I've used Norwex products for years. There's so many available. Again, run it through environmental working group. This is one of my favorite interventions is having clean air plants in every room in the house. So in every major room in my house, I have clean air plants. I've tried in my one son's room. They just die in there. So that's the room that does it, but he has an air filter going all the time in there. So clean air plants, have them in your house. Because again, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be some level of exposure. Things like spider plants and snake leaves and aloe. Again, you can just Google clean air plants. And there's like a whole list. I like plants. I'm not necessarily the best plant mom, but I love them. And then like I've got them in strategically in every room so that there's a little bit of boost and the air is getting cleaned without me having to do anything, right? What a great present for someone, right? What a great host present if you're going to a holiday party to bring someone a clean air plant. That is a fantastic when we start seeing the opportunities not only for ourselves, but then to spread that to other people. That's what lights me up. Looking at clean beauty products, Epsom salt baths. I love an Epsom salt bath. The magnesium helps draws things out from the skin, and getting adequate sleep. What do we include? Making sure we're getting enough sleep. We detox the most the first part of the night. So if we're staying up too late, we're missing that deep sleep window and we're missing that optimal detox window. We want to ensure our body's detoxing. We need to be going to bed on time. Being mindful about the food we're choosing. Being grateful for the food we get to choose and the healthy, yummy food we get to make. Breathing, incorporating breathing. We talked about this last week as well. And there's a term called coherent breathing, where an easy way to do it is just tune in and breathe in and out at the same pace. So breathe in for 4 or 5 seconds and then breathe out for 4 or 5 seconds. Ideal is like 5 to 6 seconds, but if you're new to it, I have people start with 4. Breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. And just doing that through your nose will ensure proper oxygenation into your body and proper elimination through your nose. One of the reasons we breathe, again, is to breathe out metabolic waste products. So if we're not breathing well, if we're holding our breath, we're having shallow breath, we're shutting down one of those detox pathways. Things to include sulfur-rich foods. So sulfur needed in those detox pathways. Sulfur-rich foods include things like asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, onions, garlic, and even meats like turkey and chicken. Those foods are all have a decent sulfur content, so that will help our bodies have what it needs to properly detox. Fresh or dried herbs are a great way to add flavor to your food without having to go to extra artificial flavoring. And when your palate starts shifting over time, if you start making the shift away from eating a lot of overly processed foods, home cooked meals, and focusing on where can I add flavor, a lot of times it's very easy, but just we have to, again, think of a different way of preparing our food sometimes. Dried herbs, fresh herbs, there's so much nutritional benefit on those, and they help our food taste better. Fiber rich foods, right? Leaning towards fiber rich foods. And this one really reminded me yesterday of the benefit of when you're going through, whether it's a weight loss program, whether it's a detox program, going through it with the idea and having some sort of mindfulness or spiritual practice while you're doing it. Whether it's gratitude, whether you work with a therapist or a coach, or you have a spiritual practice that you do daily or have weekly group meetings. It was reminded of me yesterday because I started on Friday. So I'm 90 days. I'm on a protocol for like not necessarily detox, but it's like for some other stuff I got going on. So 90 days, no sugar, no gluten, bunch of other things. And I haven't even like started everything. Like the supplements I've ordered, like they haven't even arrived yet. But I've committed to increasing some of the vegetables, increasing some of the herbs that I know are going to be helpful. So I focus on increasing those, and then no sugar, no gluten, because I know I need to be off that anyway. And it really reminded me yesterday, because I've had this happen a few times, where when you are knowingly detoxing, when you are knowingly, and again, I include that if you're on a weight loss program, knowingly detoxing, knowingly on a weight loss program, you want to have some sort of mindfulness, spiritual practice along, because as you start clearing your body out, you will have ahas because you have opened up for a new way of being. And it's happened so many times, myself and my clients, no matter what program they're doing on, that I will now say, and this is why I've never really promoted detox in the past, why I had like, other than like just regular clean living stuff, this is why I've never really promoted detox, because I disagree with the way most of it is presented online. And knowing that the mindset piece, the awareness, the adult choices that go into that process are so important. And if we just focus on, oh, I need to detox because I drink too much over the holidays. I need to detox because I gained 10 pounds over the holidays, or I just got back from a cruise. That's not the best way to do it when we're just so focused on either the food or like the what we're doing and what we're not doing. The mindfulness and the spiritual practice doing something along with it will accelerate your results, your satisfaction with the process, and then also what you're willing to continue with long term. Because you will see things when you're willing to look at, just like the deep clean, whether you're deep cleaning your sock drawer. Actually, I'm curious to see who all, I've had some people share that they cleaned their fridge out. So let me know in the comments if you cleaned your fridge out, or your sock drawer, or your junk drawer. It takes courage to go and look in there, right? It takes courage to clean out the junk drawer. It takes courage to clean out the closet. It takes courage. You got to face what's sitting in the back of that vegetable crisper that you know that's been back there you've been ignoring. The same thing happens with us emotionally, mentally, spiritually when we go into a practice like this. And so that's why I committed to, for the people who are going through the Clear Change program, is like I'm giving them the support of those things throughout their 10 days. Okay, just a few more, two more things on my list. Reduce plastics, right? So looking for the opportunity, glass or stainless steel containers, right? These are things you can put on your holiday wish list, right? Great place to get this stuff is Canadian Tire for you guys in Canada, because they often just watch the sales. Because when they put stuff on sale, they put it on 40% off, and they put on like the Anchor like glass storage containers, or they put in like the stainless steel water bottles and stuff. So just make a list of, see something you would like, put it on your list, send it to someone like, hey, I'd love this for Christmas. And a digital detox, right? Can we take a break from our electronic devices while we're using this time to detox, to take a load off, to spend more time doing an Epsom salt bath or taking a sauna or going for a walk or just sitting and breathing for a few minutes? Digital detox is can be very confronting. And that's because we then become aware of how much we're using social media, or we're filtering our brains with stuff that we don't need to process. Right? We think of it that way. It's like, where are things entering my body? Not just physical, but mental as well. Where are things entering my body mentally that I don't need to process? I'm going to choose to like not have my body have to process that. And a lot of it is what we're consuming on our phones, on our computers, on the radio, on the TV. So just being mindful of like, do I need this radio on in the background? Or what am I listening to? Do I need this TV on the background? What are we watching? Do I need to go to do I need to pick up my phone right now? Like, what am I looking at? Did I go for a specific reason, and then, oh wait, why did I go to my phone again? Because I saw something and got, followed that little pathway. So incorporating a little bit of a digital detox can be helpful as well. And again, everyone will set their own framework of that, right? Maybe a limitation. Maybe you'll delete an app for a week and take a break from a certain app, or just putting time on it, especially like, you know what, I'm not going to check it after 8 o'clock at night or an hour before bed, or I'm not going to check it for the first hour I wake up, can be very helpful too. So there's the list. That was a long list today of a lot of things that you want to be aware of. And when given the opportunity, when given the choice, okay, what can I avoid putting on my body, putting in my environment? What are some things I could focus on instead? So I hope you found that list helpful. There's a lot there. Again, just replace one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time, one thing at a time, and it really does add up over time. For anyone who's doing the Clear Change program, we will officially start that on Saturday. If you want to learn more about that, so that is a 10-day process. If you are in Canada, all you need to do for that is order a kit, and everything is included in it, and I'll walk you through everything. If you're in Canada, I would say order your kit today. If you order from Metagenics, usually they're pretty good with about 2 days shipping. It says 3 to 5, but usually shows up in about 2 days. So if you order it today, you will get it in time. For those of you in the US, my US peoples are ordering from Fullscript, which again, usually pretty quick shipping, but you've got a holiday in there on Thursday. So I don't know about the mail situation. If you ordered it today, still might be there on Friday. So I would look into that. And if by chance you go ahead and order it and it doesn't show up to Monday, it's no big deal. You would just start your day a couple days behind the other people in the group doing it. And that's totally fine too. And you might look at your calendar and be like, you know what, this weekend, Saturday's not the best day for me to start it. I'm going to start it next Saturday. Everyone's going to go through it at their own pace. So if you're curious on joining the Clear Change, the people doing the 10-day Clear Change, just send me a message and I'll get you the details on that. And until next Tuesday, I'll be back with our part 4, the final mini masterclass of this series on detox. And a little segue, December will be on stress. We're at a great topic which is often a very stressful time of the year. So have a super day, make it amazing, and we'll talk to you soon.